Okay. Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to today's session on Agile Estimation. And thank you for taking out your time and being here today. So I would like to introduce today's presenter, Selvi. She is a seasoned Scrum Master who worked with Philips, Boeing, and currently she is working with BD. So BD is one of the largest global medical technology companies in the world. And currently she is leading BD's project and product management division. A recorded version of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel, Career Talk, so you can watch it later as well. We'd love to hear from you. So Q&A session will be at the end of the presentation. You can post your query one by one parallelly, and we will pick it up one by one. And this session is divided into two parts, basic and advanced. Selvi will explain more about it in her slides. So thanks, Selvi, for giving your time. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Sunand. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Sunand, I just need your help for the screen sharing. Permission to me, please.
Yeah, you can try now.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So thanks, Sunand, for the great intro, and let me directly jump into the topic. Okay, so first of all, thanks everyone for taking out your time in participating in our first meetup session with the topic of Agile estimation. So let me directly start with the agenda of today. So actually, we have a tightly packed agenda for today's session. So as Sunand mentioned at the beginning, there will be two parts for this Agile estimation particular talk itself. The reason why we have separated is we made it at a first level, the most of the theory concepts and the understanding about what we are going to do with the estimate will be handled. And the second session is more on the role play part. So already we have a very good level of enthusiastic volunteers who have already planned to participate in our role play, which will be happening in the upcoming session. So there we will be trying to make use of all the options, something like a use case where you will be facing some kind of challenges and how you will overcome that challenge and estimate a particular story. So those kind of things we will try to do in the upcoming session. So today's session is going to be like how we will prepare to do the estimate, and which will be done as a role play in the upcoming session. So that's the plan. That's the way we have separated into two sessions. So let me quickly start. Let me quickly ask a question to people. There is a difference between guesstimate and estimate, right? So and one more request, please. You can be having an interactive session. So please be free to answer, and just put your thoughts, because there is no right and wrong, or no one is going to judge here, because it's all about learning for all of us. So I can also learn something from all of you, and you can also learn something from my experience. So that's all about the session. So please feel free to share your points whenever there are some questions and whenever there are some kind of concepts which are coming. Next week it's going to be more fun and interactive, because we will have so many questions coming up and so many things you must answer. But now today it's going to be little light, but I want everyone's participation as well here. Okay, so guesstimate is something like, generally in projects, if it is a new project, you used to hear the term, can you give a just rough estimate for me that how much time it will take to complete this work? It is some of the factors you may not have at your desk. You just go with some kind of gut feeling, and you will come up with some kind of some history, whatever you have with some projects, or maybe you have something related to the similar kind of work you would have done in the past. With all those information, you will be actually giving a rough estimate. So there, some of the factors which actually required to estimate your work may not be available, because it's a very fresh project, right? So in that place, we will be doing a guesstimate. Whereas estimate is actually derived based on some key factors. You need to have some factors, then only you can say that you will be able to actually estimate your work. So there is a difference between guesstimate and estimate. Generally, guesstimate will turn into estimate after certain number of sessions, what you will do as part of refinement, clarifications, and all those things will be happening parallelly, right? So during those kind of sessions, your guesstimate will definitely turn into an estimate part. So that's how the guesstimate and estimate concept gets into picture. So today we are not going to talk about guesstimate. We are going to talk more about estimate because we are in the agile world. And maybe initially you might be giving some guesstimate figures, but down the line you need to definitely work on the estimation. So that's the target for us today. Okay, and please feel free to stop me anytime to ask any kind of questions. Definitely I'll try to answer from the level I know the concepts. If there are some questions we still need to brainstorm, we can definitely brainstorm as a group, right? Okay, so what we generally estimate, it is always a good practice to estimate both product backlog and sprint backlog. So first of all, let's try to understand, most of us know what is a product backlog and sprint backlog. Product backlog is something that will be a super level item from which the sprint backlog will be created. It is nothing but a subset. Sprint backlog is nothing but a subset of the product backlog. So why I need to estimate? Is that a duplicate work that I'm doing? But it has some kind of significance. Okay, so let's try to understand what is the significance and why are we estimating both product backlog and sprint backlog. Okay, so what is the benefit when I actually estimate the product backlog? So first thing is the product owner to make longer term predictions. Let's assume I'm a product owner and I have in the product backlog around 100 items or 200 items. I have pushed so many user stories I have made as a work item and I have pushed it. I don't have any estimate. Items are available and I am interested to know a particular functionality. Let's take a functionality like search functionality. Okay, I want to know this search functionality, how much time generally it takes for my team to complete. I don't have the answer because I don't have the estimate. So now here is the catch. So when we start adding the product backlog items, it is always good and it's always a good practice for the Scrum Master to push the team and the product owner to get these items as estimates in the product backlog. So this is one item. So suddenly if my manager is coming and asking, or if anyone who wants to know about longer term predictions, definitely this estimate is going to help us. Like in another 3 months, what is your gut feeling says about the team to complete what sort of work? I can very well say, because I have the estimate, I can conclude it and say, okay, these many things will be definitely completed in another 3 months, or this functionality will take so and so time. I can give the information because of this estimate in the product backlog. Second option is product owners in making prioritization decisions. So now people might ask, what is the relationship between priority and estimation? Because priority is something like it depends on the market need, it depends on the type of the functionality, it depends on the value that it adds to the customer. Because of all those things, we set the priority as product owners, right? So now comes the question, what benefit I will get because of estimating the product backlog, how it is going to help me in prioritizing. So here there is one small factor which actually plays a bigger role, that is nothing but cost. Okay, so every product backlog item has a cost involved in it. So how much cost is required to complete that product backlog item? So now as a product owner, even though I know this is the priority because of certain criteria, like what is the market need, what is the business value that it delivers to the customer, what is the need of this particular functionality right now, even though I know all this information, if there are two are in the same level and I want to take a call, I may also use this cost factor to set the priority of the particular item. So to know the cost, it's nothing but the estimate, right? So 10 days if it takes, then automatically it is the 10 number of days with that cost is involved. So it will be easy for me to understand what is the cost that is involved in the product backlog item to for certain items to set the priority. Okay, so as a product owner, I will use my product backlog items estimate in certain situations to set the priority also. Next one is, as we all know, this is a very important point. As more and more we refine and groom the items, team will have less questions and more answers we will get, more clarification we will get, right? So team members become more knowledgeable about the item. So more and more we ask the questions, more and more we refine day by day, we will be getting more comfort. And in addition, we will identify the dependencies and the blockers at the very early stage, which will help even Scrum Masters to take the right action plan and come up with the time that when the blocker will get actually resolved or unblocked. So these all are certain things. Third point will give us the advantages. So when we estimate the product backlog, we are getting certain benefits, not only from the product owner point of view, even Scrum Master, even as a whole team, we are going to get a lot of benefits, right? Okay, now going to the next part, which is sprint. Yes, please.
Nitin here. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
Nitin.
have a question here.
Yeah.
So as per my understanding, we're doing the estimation thing for the sprint backlog at the time of sprint planning. Okay.
Yes.
Before that, we have one practice that's called a grooming or refinement session, which we do in the previous sprint. So,
Yes.
when we do this exercise, because this is a product backlog, and if we have an n number item in the product backlog, so when we do this exercise, and what are the participation means, who will be the participation for this activity? Because as per my understanding, the owner of this activity sorry for that. As per my understanding, the owner of this product backlog is a product management person only. So when we'll introduce the team and Scrum Master here.
Okay, good question, and thanks for that question, Nitin. So let's take Nitin's question and try to understand how it is possible, first of all, to do that, because generally estimation happens on sprint backlog, and how we can do it as part of product backlog. So generally teams follow the culture of picking up the items that they will be taking up in the upcoming sprint. One sprint prior they will be estimating, or they may be taking it for grooming, and at the part of grooming they will be doing this estimation. But sometimes many of us would have faced a situation, some uncertainties would have been arised over there, or maybe we would have come across some kind of questions where we cannot get the clarity because product owner may need some time. So these are the practical scenarios we actually end up with. So one good practice is always pick up the product backlog items whenever it is getting pushed. Scrum Master should work with product owner and try to find what are the priority items and start grooming. It is not necessary we need to wait for just one sprint prior of the actual execution sprint to do the estimation. It should be taken care early. The additional point what I want to stress here is, in scaled agile model, when we work on the scaled agile framework, SAFe model, there is a concept that we will be doing all these things at the very early, which means before the PA starts. So the advantage here is we will try to understand what will be taken care for the next upcoming 5 sprints, which will be done as part before the first sprint even start. So that is one advantage. As personally also, I have used this model of SAFe, which actually I have seen we are doing it little early and we are able to unblock the items more. So the advantage here is, one key thing what we also need to understand as Scrum Masters also, whenever the product backlog is keep on growing, it is always a good practice to sit with the product owner and understand the priority and start pushing the items as part of grooming. It is not necessary we should stop the grooming part according to the capacity or according to the velocity. We should stop it there and yeah, my team is already having a groomed backlog, so it's okay that we can skip. No, we should start doing this because this gives a lot of confidence, and especially the third point adds more and more value to the team. Okay.
So I have a point actually. So please correct me if I'm wrong. So as you said, like we should, in the SAFe, we should plan for n+5 or n+4, whatever we follow. Okay. So like we are not shipping the or we are not deploying each release, okay, on the production. So ideally what we are doing is like for 4 or 5 sprints, we do the work as per the requirement. And when once that particular item is done from our end, like we feel like it's good to be sent to the production, we do it. Okay. So in that case, like again, it depends on the sprint line, like, or the product we need to ship it on the production. We should follow in this way, correct?
Yes, true.
Okay.
So actually, yeah. So
yeah,
in
sorry,
SAFe,
please.
as you rightly mentioned, it is completely on release, and you won't be shipping the product on sprint by sprint basis. It is completely based on your program requirement. If your program is demanding like, hey, I need a release on so and so time, so you will be keep on adding all the items whatever as part of your sprint delivery, and you will be accumulating as a part of release train. You will be delivering it to your release train. It's up to the release train now to take it to the program according to the deadlines that program is setting and ship to the actual customers as a part of product.
Okay, so ideally, like the n+1 or n plus x factor depends on the product when we are going to release it.
Yes, the number of sprints, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions before we move to the next slide?
Selvi, I'll suggest you to move because our time is running and we need to finish this.
Okay, sure.
Maybe in the end, we will take all the questions one by one.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we will talk about the sprint backlog. This is common for everyone because all of us do this particular thing. So we need to estimate at this point, definitely, because we need to know what is the capacity we have for the particular sprint. With the help of this estimation, we will be able to understand what is the planned work that we can take it for the sprint execution, where I'm like over committing or I'm like under committing or I'm like equally balanced. All those things can happen with the point number 1. Second thing, we will be able to understand and identify more number of tasks if we are estimating at this level. Definitely, we all are doing that, right? On the sprint planning or during the start of the sprint, what we generally do, we will try to identify the tasks that are involved in each and every story. This will also help us to bring a different level of coordination. The reason being, you will be, when you are start identifying the task, obviously you will tend to understand that who all are the dependencies you have. Like you have a dependency with the designer on day 1, so then you can pick it to for the development. Then you have a dependency with the intermediate build you are sharing with your tester. So like this, you can identify what all that with the help of the task you can understand and come up with a better coordination strategy. Okay, so estimation is going to help in that manner as well. And as all we know, task is estimated in the hours, not in story points. Okay, we'll talk about that in the upcoming slides as well. Okay, so we all are talking about the terms where we will be estimating and what level product backlog items, sprint backlog items. These items are nothing but the user stories, right? So we need to slightly touch upon and understand what is all user story about. So in Agile methodology, whatever the product requirement or business need or functionality, generally a requirement, we try to put it in the form of user stories. Okay, so the execution level functionality is nothing but the story. So you won't execute your feature or requirement, you will execute from the level of user story. That's why user story slightly takes much more interest than other part, because many of us won't been involved in other requirement writing or feature development or feature related things preparation. But definitely in user stories, we all have a major role to play, right? So that's where the execution level functionality is nothing but the user story. So what is the actual benefit this user story gives? Why actually user story takes much more priority here? First, it is giving the clarity to the developers what they need to start and what they need to do and finish as part of the development, right? We will, in our upcoming sessions, we will try to understand what is DOR, DOD and all those things. All those things are coming from this user story. I'm not going to go so deep with user story today because otherwise it will get deviated. So I'm touching upon the topic to understand. So for developers to start and stop, so you know that there is a thing in user story which is called as acceptance criteria that gives the clarity for developers, testers, everyone to do what they need to do for that particular user story. Okay, so testers can test the developed functionality and ensure whether it is according to the requirement specification or not. So for that, this will be helpful. And the PO, because he is our actually the current customer, right? It's not current customer. The customer facing person is nothing but the PO who will be with us as a team member. So that person will be able to verify the desired functionality by only checking with this kind of story details, especially with the acceptance criteria. Whether he or she need to accept the story or not will be decided based on this story acceptance criteria. Okay. So now let's understand what actually we will be able to identify from this story. So what are the dependencies we have? What are the risks that are involved? What is the complexity of the work? And what is the amount of work that is required? So all these things we can identify with the help of user stories. Why I'm slightly stressing this point is generally when we ask someone, hey, what is the estimate of this story? 3 story points. Actually, they will only think about, okay, if I start coding and let me complete the coding, some people won't even remember about testing. Many of us won't remember about the dependencies it needs to be resolved before picking up the user story. And we don't think about the complexity of the functionality. Maybe you have a risk which is involved, that also we may not think. But actually, when estimating, these all things are the key factors. As I mentioned initially, what is the difference between guesstimate and estimate? Guesstimate doesn't have any key factors. You are just with the historical information and your guesswork, and with some calculation points, you are giving a rough estimate, which is nothing but the guesstimate. Whereas estimate will be actually based on some key factors. These are the key factors which are available in your user story that will help the team to come up with the real estimation points. Okay. Okay, so what are the guidelines of user story? So as we all know, every user story should have a goal. We will talk about user story itself in a separate session. I will request Sunan to plan, because when I was preparing this also, I was thinking about we need to learn more about user story as well. So every user story should have a specific goal or benefit. Some people generally ask, hey, can I write a user story for testing? No, testing is an activity or a task. It cannot be a user story. So user story should deliver a value, should deliver an outcome. It should be something like you should be able to ship the product. So the first point is it should have a specific goal. And if you feel that more goals are coupled in your user story, then it's always a good practice to break your stories into smaller stories so that every story has a goal. At the same time, it is always a good practice to have smaller stories than to have bigger stories. We'll talk about that in the estimation. That's our whole point. But generally, always try to understand, if you feel that you are going to give more goals in one story, that is not a right guideline. Okay. So each user story should be potentially shippable. So when you are having a user story and when you are ready with that, it should not go through any other further process to be for shipping. Okay, you should be in a position, hey, like my user story, it's meeting definition of done. That means my user story is accepted by the product owner. That means it should be in a position to ship to the customer. That's the way the user story should be closed. It should not have any dependency like, yeah, I'm just closing this story because of this purpose, but there will be a story that will be attached from this story's outcome. No, that should not be the case. Okay. And the next one is size of a user story is measured in story points to provide the complexity. As we are talking about the complexity, why we are stressing, because it is also one of the key factor for us to estimate. So size of the user story, why story points, why not other, we will be going to that. Okay. Okay, so this is one thing I just want to mention. Always we have a plan, but the reality will be different, right? So this, the first picture is all about when someone is asking, what is your estimate on this particular story? Hey, 3 story points, that's your plan. But actual reality, you will get to know that there is a risk which is involved, and then you will get to know there are some dependencies which are involved. Then you know what is the complexity, then you know the amount of work that what you have planned actually increased. So the reality is different, right? So estimation should be taken care with all these key factors and not just by thinking the amount of work alone. Okay, so let's try to understand quickly what is the traditional estimation, because just I'm putting this try to give a kind of glimpse about what is the difference that we are trying to achieve with the help of the agile estimation. Okay. So traditional estimation, we used to estimate for the entire product, like end to end, we used to estimate, like with each and every task we used to estimate, and it will be for the whole product. Till from the start to finish, you will be estimating. And every single activity, either it's development or testing or any effort that is involved in that product, which will be estimated separately. It's not like a combined effort of user story. There is nothing called as user story, right? So you will be estimating based on your different activities. You will be estimating separately, and then you will collate it and make it as an estimate for your product. And estimation will be always given in absolute values, like 3 hours, 5 hours, 4 hours, like that. Okay, and there will be a panel of people who are like technical experts, who are like architects, and the member and other members, key members, will be only involved in this estimate. There is no concept like estimate will be done by the development team, where it will be facilitated by a scrum master and supported by the details from product owner. There was no such concept because these roles were not there, right? So there, it's majorly a panel, and panel may be having some set of people. So what we generally do with these estimates, we'll create a plan of schedule. So we all know that important factors, right? There is something called a schedule, something called as scope, something called as budget. So these all are the major three pillars, right, of any project. So what happens here is when these estimates are ready at our side, we will come up with a plan of schedule, and this development will be driven based on this plan. Okay. But here, interestingly, in Agile, what happens? This estimates, I'll slightly try to touch upon what is the different way that we are doing from traditional to Agile. We are not estimating on task, that's for sure, right? We are doing it as part of user story, and user story estimation is also not happening as absolute values. It is happening with relative model. We will understand what is relative model and why relative model as well. And we are not going to estimate each and every activity. It is going to be a team's effort, and it is going to be for the user story, whatever the tasks that are involved. In addition to the key factors, we are going to estimate, not on the amount of work done. And it is not going to be a set of people who will be going to estimate it. It's going to be a development team which will be facilitated by a scrum master and the product owner as a support person to give the clarification. It will be done. And here we will be trying to understand what that user story will give us a value, right? So what is the business value that the story is giving, and that business value will drive your development. Your priority will be set based on your business value delivery, and the priority will be set by other key factors by the PO. That will be your key model of your development driven model. It is not based on your schedule. Whereas in traditional model, as we rightly mentioned here, estimates will produce a plan of schedule, and that will drive your development. Here it is value that will drive your development, because all your estimates will be based on your value factor also, because what is the business value that the user story produce, that also is one of the key factor to make your estimation. Okay, here comes our Agile estimation. So the categorizing stories in different relative sizes. So relative is one keyword. Okay, so we will talk about this keyword with some examples in the upcoming slides. So there are different factors, as I earlier also mentioned. Complexity, yeah, the keyword here is business value. Risk, amount of work, dependencies. These all will give you a factor which is nothing but your story points. Okay, so stories will be estimated with the help of the story points. The outcome of your estimation activity is nothing but your story point. Okay, so your story points will, for example, the story points are traveling into a tunnel, which is nothing but an estimation. When it comes out of the tunnel, all the story points will have one crown, which is nothing but the story point. That you can remember. So that story points, when we are trying to estimate it, we will try to use all these factors before actually estimating every user story. Okay, now comes the question of why relative estimation. Earlier also it was fine, right? Absolute model saying 3 hours, 4 hours. What was wrong in that? Why we had gone for relative estimation? The first thing is, first point, what we need to remember here is it is about Agile, right? You cannot say that things won't change. Things are flexible here. Things may fluctuate according to the feedback you receive, according to the changes that are happening, and according to the priorities that are fluctuating from the product management side. Things are going to move here and there. That is one thing. So that's why we are going to the Agile model, right? And the second one is, here you are getting slightly a luxury. Like when you say that 3 hours, you need to know everything, and you need to estimate it accordingly, saying that, hey, it's something like this. I will join at 9 o'clock is nothing but your absolute call, right? When you say, hey, I will join somewhere around 9 o'clock. So around means you can even join at 8:50, you can join at 9:10, it is flexible. Same way, the relative estimation, here we are not estimating with a very narrow mindset that, yeah, it will be completed in this. I'm not saying that it is a wrong model, but you need to have all the information. But the model, what we are using is, we have the luxury to pick up anything as part of feedback that is coming. Also, we are picking it up, we are prioritizing it, and we are taking it as part of sprint backlog, and we are going to execute it. Sometimes we may have all the information available, sometimes we may not have. So we need to estimate, and then start with guesstimate, and then move to the level of estimate. So here we are trying to understand that we are not going to give the values which are like 3 hours or 5 hours. We are going to give with the help of story points. Okay, so why we are giving in Fibonacci series, I will be talking in the upcoming slides. Okay, so it is not important about the values what we use. Okay, it is important about the relative difference. Why I need to use the Fibonacci series? Why story points in Fibonacci series? Whether I need to use only always like 1, 2, 3, 5, 8? No, it's not necessary. You can use 10, 20, 30, 50, 80 also you can use. There is no harm in that. The only thing is, we all are using Agile, and we want to come up with some kind of relative model where some numbers are giving some values and some kind of representation. So here you are able to see some kind of relative difference. That's the reason we are trying to use Fibonacci series. So it's not about the value. 1, 2, 3 is just a number. The importance here is the relative model. Okay, so the relative difference between the values is giving lot of gain for us, and not the actual numbers. Okay, so before going to this slide, so let me quickly explain you on the relative model, how it works also. Okay, so let's try to understand first of all how we will come with these numbers. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 5, what it actually tries to explain us. I'm explaining with a simple example. I am holding an object. I feel it is of size something like X. Okay, and I know that it is small, and I'm picking up another object of same type, same color, everything is same. Only thing is, when I'm holding, I'm feeling it is slightly bigger. Okay, the slightly bigger, slightly smaller, these all are the relative terminologies. It's not like absolute terminologies. I cannot measure just by touching or just by holding those objects. I cannot say this is 2.5 milligram extra than this one. No, I cannot do that. That is something like absolute, where I'm saying, yeah, this is, I feel this is smaller, and I feel this is slightly bigger. That slightly bigger and slightly smaller is nothing but the relative explanation. So these numbers 1, 2, 3, 5, you can always think that one is smaller. That is the object that you are holding, which is of smaller size. Next, you are picking up one more object that is 2 times bigger than the previous object. Third one you are picking, which is 3 times bigger than the first object. So this is how actually the it is, you are not saying that how much big, or what is the, how are you measuring that it is bigger than the first product. It's not about that. It's about relatively, I'm saying it is bigger than the previous one. So that is nothing but the relative model. We will talk about that when we are coming to the actual estimation technique also, but I just want to explain how this relative model. So why I'm slightly touching upon here in this slide is, t-shirt size we all would have seen, right? Like when we were young, what was the size we were using? Then we are also growing, relatively the sizes were also growing, and especially during the time of COVID, we would have gone to some bigger size also, right? So that's all about the relative model, right? So we don't know that how much, but you can very well say that, yeah, I have grown bigger than last month or last year. So it's nothing but I know that I have grown, but how much and all, I'm not with the absolute value, but I know. So similarly, 1, 2, 3, how we are depicting, we can also use this kind of representation of t-shirt sizing, nothing but XSL, L, XS, S, M, medium, large, same thing like how we use for the model, but every number is equal to that. That's why I specifically mentioned in the last slide also, it is not about values, it is about the relative difference that makes the thing here, which is whether it is slightly bigger or slightly smaller, or it is completely bigger, completely smaller. No relation with the numbers or that XL or L, whatever we are using. It is nothing but the relative difference. Okay, so we have lot of estimation techniques available. But coming to the estimation technique, right now what we are going to see are two estimation techniques we are going to see. One is complexity bucket, another one is the planning poker. So the estimation techniques, why we are using differently, because in the traditional model you would have seen a lot of other things, expert judgment, 3-point estimate, and all those things. Here, based on the current situation of Agile, we came up with this model of different estimation techniques. It's nothing but complexity bucket and planning poker, Delphi, wideband Delphi. So the first two are a kind of like planning poker is very commonly used. Most of us know how planning poker works. And complexity bucket, some people would have been using this, or maybe some people are aware of this. Delphi and wideband Delphi is like little rarely used kind of estimation techniques. To be very frank, I have not used Delphi and wideband Delphi. The first one, I have known about this information and I have at least slightly tried to use this model. Second one is obvious, planning poker is a very commonly used. Third and fourth, if someone at the end of the session, if someone has some kind of idea, you can just throw some thoughts on that so that it will be helpful for the entire team, right? So let me go to the complexity bucket. Okay, so this is one thing which is really interesting. Okay, so you have a requirement, and what you are going to do is, like, in that requirement you have a very high level activities that you can classify. So in this requirement, I am able to classify high level requirements as user interface, business logic, data integration, testing. These are the high level items that I can think of that requirement. Okay, I means here as a team. Here, every single individual will be separately doing the estimation. Okay, that's the first point. And at the end, whoever actually getting the most, not whoever, the story point which is going to get the maximum number of votes will be picked up as the actual story point. Okay, so how are we going to do? Because all the layers may or may not have the actual importance, right? Some requirements may have this business logic involved, or I am not actually a person to give the estimate for the business logic, something like that, right? So what we have done is, there are different level of complexities that we have set. One is NA, I have no idea, so I'm not going to estimate, I will give 0. Next one is low, which is equal to 1, medium, which is equal to 2, high is equal to 3, and critical is equal to 4. Okay, so for every activity, as a person, as a team member, I'm going to set a value. For example, user interface, I'm thinking, hey, no, I don't feel that there is nothing a problem, I will go with medium 2. And business logic, I feel it should be low. Data integration, I don't think. Testing, so you will be able to give an estimate for each and every activity. Okay, whatever the activities that you have identified as a team for a particular requirement. Now there is something called as helpful considerations. Why we have made this helpful consideration? Maybe I am a pro in user interface side, I am a UI developer, I may not be having much understanding about the testing dependencies. So from the information as a team we have collected, we have given this information, like user testing complexity is there, data setup is, and we don't have a golden set of data, how are we going to handle it? We don't know the test automation part because we need to concentrate on that as well. So these all are the challenges as manual testing, or maybe the whole testing group is going to face, which will help me to give the estimate. That's why we are putting all the helpful considerations that so there is one example which is given. So as a customer, I want to browse the list of products. That's my my core interest to do. So what you are able to see is 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21 plus all these values are also given that you are able to see. It's nothing but first object is very smallest one, that is 1, then is small, then medium, between medium and large, then large, very large, and it's high level epic. Okay, so these are the values which are given. So for me as a team member, I feel user interface, it's medium complexity. Okay, so I am putting as M is equal to 2. So you are able to understand, right? Every complexity is branched into a different set of bucket. That's the key here, which we need to consider. And how we are going to estimate it with the help of the considerations, what as a team we have collected, and with the help of the relative model only. So user interface, I feel it is just 2. So I have given 2. Business logic, I don't think there is nothing available for this particular requirement. So I'm making it as 0. Then the data integration side, I'm making it as 1 because it's low item, and testing also, according to me, it's low. Okay, so total it's 4 points, which is actually between 3 and 5. There is nothing called 3 and 5, right? So what we are going to do, which is not even in 3, not even in 5. So we will pick up the maximum, closest to maximum, which is nothing but the 5. So according to me, this story should get a story point of 5. Let's take different people. Let's take Prem Sagar, let's take Sunand, let's take Diksha, whomever in our team who are going to give some kind of estimates in the similar fashion. Now let's come to the voting part, where we will try to vote for all the story points as a single member who had given, and now come with the final actual story point for the story. Okay, so here the key is it's going to be the same, but it is going to be taken care by every individual. That is one thing. And another point is complexities will be categorized in different buckets for every activity. So every activity of the requirement will be bucketized, and the complexity of that particular activity will be set or given by the user, particular team member, as an estimate, and the collated information will be taken as a story point, which is the closest maximum will be picked as the story point, or the actual number, if it is 8 will be taken as the story point, and this exercise will be done by the entire team. So this is nothing but the complexity bucket. Okay, so now let's go to the planning poker. This is more interesting. Let me also take some good amount of time to explain this, because this is most commonly used, and we would have seen a lot of different opinion and challenges with when using planning poker, right? So planning poker, different tools are available. Some people use even app these days, because we all are actually distributed team these days, right? So it's not about the geographic location. It's all about as work from home. Most of us are distributed. So planning poker can be, the tool can be used as part of the app. Generally, you can voice out as well if you are in a co-located situation, and you have the cards that you can use, and even you can show directly your fingers, raising your fingers, saying that 3, 5, and all those things. These are generally the common tools that we use for planning poker. Okay, let's now understand how planning poker happens, and what are the different ways that we do that estimation. Okay, so the user story will be created by the product owner, and it is available as part of the product backlog item, which is nothing but the product backlog. It is situated right now. We are grooming the story. A lot of questions are coming. Product owner is giving the answers. A team is trying to understand what are the risks that are involved, what are the complexity is involved, what is the business value that we are bringing, and what is the purpose of this story. Everything is understood, and the testing people are trying to understand what are the non-functional requirements that are coming up, what are the things that I need to check from the non-functional angle. Everything has been taken care. Now team came to a conclusion, okay, we are like 100% knowing the information about all the things which needs to be taken care as part of the story. Now Scrum Master will say like, hey, let's go for the estimation. Now there are options that directly when this user story is getting displayed on the board, directly people can raise their fingers and say like 3, 5, and all those things, or you can use the poker cards also. So when you are using the poker cards, there are situations everyone may not go with the same number, right? Like I'm saying 3 and Sunand is saying like 13, which is nowhere close, right? Now it's the call for the Scrum Master. So the Scrum Master always should pick the values which is the least and which is the highest one, and try to understand what they are trying to tell to the team, like why they have picked the lowest number and why they have picked the highest number. Because we need to come to a conclusion, right? We cannot put two numbers to estimate for a story. So as a team, we need to come to some conclusion. Now I'm saying like, no, there is no problem because I don't think there is any dependency. And this is the same kind of work that we have done last time also. So I think from development side, I don't feel anything. Sunand is saying, hey, like, what are you saying? Because I need to do the testing because it's a entire new set of thing. Maybe from development side, it is a copy paste stuff that you might be doing. But in testing side, I need to write the test cases and completely do the scenario separately. And I have even dependency with the platform team that you are unaware about, because I just need to resolve all those things because my data won't come. Otherwise, I cannot start the testing for this particular model. Okay, now team analysis. Now every member of the team may be thinking from the angle of what Sunand told, because might be some people have missed out this information, right? So now the catch is there will be some people who will try to give the solution to Sunand, saying that, hey Sunand, I can understand you don't have the information, the data right now. It's not a harm now. What we can do is, like, we have already a golden set of data prepared from the previous functionality, which can be definitely used for this as well, because this will be going to be the same. So it's not going to be something different. So in that way, your dependency is kind of resolved, and we will be able to give that data to you. Okay, Sunand is saying, fine, my test data is ready, my test set is ready, then no harm in that. So I think now it should be somewhere 5. Now other members, now again as Selvi, because I told 3, right? Without even thinking there is something called as testing. I just thought about from my angle of development. So now again, we will be going for a re-estimation. Now Scrum Master again will call for, hey, like, again, you people do the estimation. Now everyone will be saying that 5 or 8. So till the time we get into a kind of conclusion, because it's all about, it's not like pointing someone and trying to reduce their number or increasing someone number. That's not the whole idea. We need to understand why people had come up with different numbers. Okay, that's more important here. So this part is going to be interesting in the upcoming session, because these are all things we are going to do with the help of our friends, because they already actually shared their interest. These all the use cases we are going to do. People are going to play the role of a Scrum Master, role of a product owner when someone needs to pitch in, and when there is a kind of confusion, who needs to resolve, and when there is a situation that things are, you want to make the things clear, and sometimes without knowing the complete understanding of Agile, because there are situations people will give 4 as estimation. There is nothing called as 4 for story points, right? So there is somewhere that we need to understand and educate those set of people, that there is somewhere a gap for them to understand about the estimation technique. So this is one call for the Scrum Master, because somewhere they are lagging in the information. So as an Agile coach, maybe you need to coach those team members and bring to the level that where they need to be, right? So those kind of coaching and mentoring is required in those set of places. So these all use cases we will be trying to understand so from the upcoming session. But to talk about planning poker, so this is all about the planning poker model, and we will get into the estimation, and that number will be the estimate for the particular user story. Okay, so if when we cannot estimate the story, so there are situations that you don't have the complete clarity, or you have a lot of dependencies which are open, and you cannot even think of, like, according to me, it's infinity, which means you are giving a kind of signal saying that, hey, this story is somewhere having a lot of uncertainties, which I cannot even think of even estimating. Okay, so it's a call now, Scrum Master and product owner, to think that what are the gaps the team is facing, because they are unable to even think of estimating. Okay, but don't ever give estimates just because it's a practice of estimation and we need to just give the number. It should not be like that. We need to analyze each and every key factor, whatever we discussed in our previous slides, to take care during your estimation of the user story. Okay, so I'm pretty much sure that many people might be getting a feel of seeing the use cases that are going to be made as next week's session. Yeah, even I am also waiting. We will definitely come with a big bang of, like, how we are going to show the different use cases. It's going to be definitely a fun and interactive session. Okay, it's not like me alone talking for so long. It will be more members who will be pitching in and talking on those things. Okay, so this is about planning poker, and there is a key. Generally don't encourage a higher number of story points. Okay, the reason is the more and more story point number shows that there is somewhere an uncertainty that is lying in your team member. They are confidently unable to give the information, hey, like, I want to go with 3 or 5, somewhere 13 or maybe 21. That gives somewhere a feeling that it's not going according to the model. Okay, so in that way, what you need to do, you need to understand why it is going to 13. Are we trying to club so many user stories? That's why I stressed on the point, try to make it as simple as possible, the user stories, make it shorter, so that you will have one goal attached to every single user story, so that it will be easy for you to deliver it and easy for people like Scrum Masters to monitor, track, and resolve the dependencies also, because when you club so many things, you don't know what are the dependencies that are coming up and you will be in big trouble. But here you will be knowing what is the concrete thing that you are going to deliver. So you know what are the dependencies, what are the risks that are involved. So it's easy for you as a Scrum Master also to unblock those situations. And another good thing what I have seen is like when smaller stories, means smaller stories with smaller estimates like 1, 3 are available, they may get completed in short span of time, like even before your mid sprint. Okay, so it also boosts your team's confidence, saying that, hey, like, okay, these many stories are completed. That's a real good thing. But just for breaking the stories into smaller chunks, do not do it, because every user story, as I mentioned at the beginning, it should have a logical outcome from it, and it should deliver a shippable product, and it should deliver some business value. Just for the sake of actually breaking the user story, we should not do it. There should be definitely a goal which should be attached, and a business value that is getting delivered out of it. Okay, so this is all about planning poker. So yeah, we are almost at the end. So these are the references I have used for actually making the slide deck and some of the information whatever I have shared. And yeah, thanks everyone. This is also helping me in my learning, because I will also be able to learn so many things from the questions, and it will be also a good interactive session. So now questions from anyone. I think Sunand, we can
So
open the
Selvi,
floor.
I think we can just go into the chat box and we can take one by one rather than everyone
Yeah.
jumping. And
Yeah.
if we require any clarification with respect to question, we can ask those individuals.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so I can see very first question is by Girja. What are the prioritization technique which we use to sort out PBI items?
Okay. So we have a separate session we will plan for the prioritization technique, because it is going to be very different. We have Moscow, which is must have, should have, would have, could have, all those things. So there are different techniques according to the nature of the product. We go with the prioritization. So we will have a dedicated session for this, because it's not going to be part of the estimation, but definitely we will take this part as in the upcoming sessions, Girija.
Yeah,
sure. Thank
maybe
you.
we can also add that weighted shortest job first that we used in
Yes.
our scaled agile form. So yeah, because nowadays most of the people are moving to the scaled agile, so we can add that also. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so next question we can see, is it
recommended practice to estimate product backlog in time, or we do relative sizing? Of course, it's relative sizing, because product backlog items are nothing but your user stories. So anytime it's not advisable to make the story points with the help of any other methodology other than relative model. So please use always for the sprint backlog and the product backlog items with the relative sizing, nothing but the story points. But definitely task during your course of your sprint planning, you will be doing in hours. That is nothing but your task estimation.
okay? Next thing I can see by Rakshit. How do you handle PI calls for geographical scatter team? The same way which we are doing for everything else.
Yeah. So even
challenges which you are facing, Rakshit?
Yeah, that's the reason being. Couple of the team members are in UK and a few of them are in Germany. So having a balance between the time zone is kind of becoming tricky. At times they are more willing to shift all the calls to EST afternoon, so it makes it kind of midnight for IST, right? So
Yeah,
maybe
time will be
somebody
always
from
a
the
challenge.
sorry.
Yeah, time will always be a challenge, honestly.
Yeah,
Yes,
so right
because-
now the alternative way that I'm handling is we have the application lead or the architect who is from onshore. So he is handling the PI call on behalf. And whenever possible, I'm joining, but again, it's kind of on and off. It does not give you the connect with the team, right? When you're not part of PI and someone is telling you what happened.
Yeah, that's the alternative. Yeah, it's always good to be part of those meetings, because you will get to know a lot of things firsthand instead of someone else. But yeah, but in these cases, we always suggest to at least have one, you can say, proxy from our team who can be there and who can understand and then pass on that info back to the team. That is one alternative. Other than that, we need to find out some common timeline where all people can sync up maybe for 2 or 3 hours, something like that. It's difficult, but yeah, I mean, we have to find that balance.
Yeah.
I just
And Rakshit,
want to know if
one
this is
more.
a universal challenge that everyone is
Yes,
facing, or
of
it's just
course,
me.
of course.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I
one
have a
another
team.
option might be something like you can look for some recording options, something like what we are doing now, because some of these
Yeah,
sessions,
yeah.
some meetings,
That is
yeah,
what I'm doing. Going through the recording, but it does not give you a chance to ask those live questions where you have, right? So a couple of
that's
Yeah,
factors.
but then we can always have a follow-up session. So ideally what we are having, so we have a PI planning of 2 days. So in the very first half, obviously all our VCs and all these people will come and they will just going to share what will be there in upcoming quarter and all. And then we have our, in the second half, we have our teams, different teams rooms, right? Where we will share our challenges and discussions, like what is our role in those upcoming epics or features and so on. And it's the second day when we have some kind of understanding or queries or issues or dependency which we have identified, we will have to share with them. So that is again, the second day is more important with respect to where all the POs will sync up. They will have all their PBIs and all. They will come up and they will give some kind of 2 to 3 minute kind of presentation where they will mention about the dependencies in upcoming sprint, what they are going to do in 2 to 3 sprints. And this is where the most of the things, challenges which we faced, all our discussion will happen at that time. So maybe you can also try something similar. Maybe we can discuss
Yeah,
this
yeah.
offline also, like how we can do that. Okay. Thanks, Rakshit.
Thank you. Thank
Sorry
you.
for our time in. We have to take other queries. Okay. So
Yeah.
this is from Vivek. Question and answer what? Okay, Gayatri. Yeah, Gayatri, what is this query? Can you ask? Let's say we have a story size of 3 pointers, which is pulled in sprint backlog, but team ended up with a situation where the story is more complex than expected. How you, so basically this question is on a spillover, Gayatri?
Not exactly on the spillover, but let's say in the refinement meeting, we discussed over the story, understood the complexity, and based on the different aspects, team estimated that story as a 3-pointer. And when they actually started implementing it, the complexity was way beyond than what we understood. And in practical scenario, it happens at times that the dependency may arise, or there is a possibility that the expected complexity work can turn out more. In that case, teams come up with a red flag saying that, yeah, we estimated it as a 3-pointer, but doesn't look like it's a 3-pointer anymore. And that might cause other stories into the sprint backlog not to get completed within the time box, that is the end of the sprint. And in this situation, we can possibly come across a risk where we won't be able to achieve our sprint goal. Then what to do? Is it advisable that team can change their estimates and replan the things, or they should go ahead with the estimates what they have given? Because as we know, in practical scenarios, estimates are not 100% correct. So how, as a Scrum Master, we should be handling the situation?
okay. So Gayatri, if I understand the things correctly, like it is not related to any scope change or anything. It is basically the lack of information that team was projecting during their estimation session, right? So actually, if this is a pattern that you are able to see in the team, then there is somewhere a kind of like gap during your estimation session. Like some of the things may be taken very lightly during the session, which is actually creating a kind of big roadblock during the execution phase. This should be somewhere communicated, and you need to try to put this question as part of the retrospective to understand why this is often happening, if it is a pattern. Okay. If it is not a pattern, and if you are able to see once or twice, then it may be somewhere like they would have missed some of the information, which is also should be taken as part of your retrospective to understand more, and not to do the same kind of thing in the further session, because you are clearly able to understand that somewhere the dependencies were not analyzed properly. So during the execution phase, they have realized, okay, this is a dependency which actually we missed out. So somewhere these pointers were not taken care at the beginning, or maybe it may not be like a casual thing. I mean, it may be a casual thing that maybe just a slip of information they would have taken lightly, but it would have came as a very big thing. But if it is a pattern, please do a retrospective, and somewhere you need to stress on the points before they actually give the estimation point.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Thanks, Sylvie. Thanks for answering that.
Thanks, Gayatri. And one more point just to add on that is, first time if it's happening, just accept it as a spillover, because it is a spillover, because we have not identified the dependencies rightly. And another thing is there is a option and chance for us to learn from that slippage as well, because next time we will be really cautious while thinking about the dependencies and how to resolve the dependencies before actually we jump into the execution. And as a Scrum Master also, it will be helpful to unblock the things before actually we deep dive into the execution phase. So some of the learnings might happen. So if it is one or first time, definitely it should be taken as a spillover, and try to do more retrospective with the help of the team and try to understand what actually made that miss and why it happened. If it is a pattern, then there is somewhere a big gap which actually need to be identified as part of your estimation activity.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Gayatri.
The next one is from Prem Sagar. How user stories differ from service and product, also ongoing and during implementation. So Prem, what is this question which you want to ask over here? Prem, you there? Okay, so looks like Prem is not here. Let's go to the next one. When to use story points and when to use t-shirt size, right? Gayatri, that's the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's
it
a very
is
interesting question.
Yeah, actually it is just a relative model, Gayatri. It's as we talked earlier also, it is these numbers or these values, 1 M, Excel 13, these numbers are just a relative model to depict some of the values, but it as such doesn't have any value. So when you say it is small and you are saying it is of size 2, it is more or less the same. So it is all depend on your comfortability, because it's teams call generally whether to follow the number or to have some kind of fancy t-shirt model sizes, so that it will look slightly different. But as a Scrum Master and as a team, our goal is to have the relative estimation model. That's all.
Okay, so I just want to add one thing over here, Gayatri, and for everyone in this call. And again, it's based on my experience. So when your team is entirely new to the Agile, when they are just shifting from waterfall to Agile, it's always good to come up with this t-shirt size kind of technique, because for them getting hangover to story points, what is this complexity and this and that will be a little bit challenging. Can I ask other people to go on mute, please? Okay, let me see if I can mute everyone. Okay, I just muted everyone. Okay, so what I'm telling, like, yeah, so it's always, if you really want to know that when we can use this t-shirt size, it's always good to use it in the beginning. The challenges which you will face with the t-shirt size is when you are going to calculate your velocity and all. So with the story points is easy. You just add 20 plus 10 plus whatever the story points or number of user stories, right? But with t-shirt size, you will face that kind of challenge, like how you will going to present this to your team or to your customer, how you will do the burn down chart, burn up chart, and so more. So there are different ways to come up with those kind of challenges. Maybe I'll tell you somewhat later, but in short, yes, what I have seen, if your team is new, they are just about to begin, use this t-shirt size, and later on you can migrate to the story points. I hope, Gayatri, you get some portion of your question.
Yeah, Sunand, actually you perfectly mentioned the point, like when team is very new to Agile, So it happened in my case, like there were a lot of confusion that has happened in terms of relative sizing. So first challenge was like we were not able to identify the reference story. So to take something as a reference story and based on that doing the relative sizing, whether it is more complex or it's a smaller story, to break it or slice it further. So there were a lot of confusion, a lot of new questions coming up from team, and they were really not comfortable initially. But yes, gradually we understood what was exactly the need of estimating a story into story pointer. They understood well about the reference story. It took around 3 to 4 sprints for us to come to that comfort level. But yeah, it was initially a bit challenging.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Gayatri. Okay, let's
Yeah,
move on.
and thank you. I think I'll just take a minute and thanks, Sunan, with the way you describe when to use these two and how story pointing is helpful in future reporting. Yeah, this is something which I learned new today. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you guys. Okay, Gunjan. Gunjan is there?
Yeah, hi everyone.
Hey, hi, Gunjan. So what is this query, Gunjan?
So again, the query is like how I will come up with the technique. Like I need to we have the new project where we have a lot of epics actually, and I need to prioritize them. Okay, so should I use planning poker, or should I use bucket sizing, or should I use
So normally, yes, Gunjan. So normally we use bucket sizing. That's the reason I also put it in the chat. When you guys are when she's explaining that, because most of the time what I have seen, people are not that much aware about what is complexity bucket technique. I would suggest everyone in this call, please go back and spend some time to understand that. That's a very good technique which normally people use when we are just about to start. When a lot of people ask in group and interviews, like when my project is about to start, how we can estimate, how if my customer is asking me, right, how we can give some kind of estimate to them. And they're asking the genuine question because they have given you the requirement, at least the high level. So they're also asking you the high level, some kind of estimate, right? So I would suggest everyone to spend some time on this complexity bucket technique. It's a very good one. And other one is also, which I mentioned earlier, that weighted shortage job first. Again, that is a prioritization technique which talks about cost of delay and the job size and all, but it's a little complicated to understand if you don't know what is cost of delay and how we have to normalize the job size and all. But again, it's a good thing. We all should know what is the weighted shortage job first technique, prioritization technique. So yeah, that's all for this query, Gunjan, for a time being.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Diksha, when to use what technique, how to figure it out based on user stories. Diksha, what is it? I think more on the same.
It is the same question I think you answered before, but I would like to know if there are more techniques when to use the t-shirt size or when to use bucket list, and if there are any other techniques apart from
there are many.
poker.
There are around, if I know correctly, there are around 9 to 10, at least I know, honestly. But do we really require to know each and everything? That's my question. Are we really want
No.
our team to, I mean, it's always good to for us, you and me, to know all these things, but is it really required for my team to know all these technique? Whether my product owner really want to know all this technique, right? So it's for you and me, it's good to know that, okay, what are the different techniques, or maybe for the interview is always good, right? But on the ground, what is best for my team? Yeah, that you have to see. And again, team varies, as mentioned by Gayatri, right? Someone is pretty new, someone is experienced. So yes, if the answer is there are many different techniques. So maybe we'll cover separate in a technique only, because I can see a lot of questions around that. So Sylvie, maybe we'll check that part later on.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Diksha, we will take this, I think. Yeah, I think you will get some idea now, but yeah, there are many to answer to that. Okay. Amya, if I pronounce it correctly, right?
It's Ami. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, Amya. You're in
Hi.
office.
No, I'm at home.
No,
Just
a lot of
in
people are
background.
behind you. or some girls
No, no,
paint?
no. It's a background. Yeah.
Okay, I thought it's your girlfriend. Okay. Okay, Amya, please, what is your query?
Yeah. So if there are two stories, one is 5-pointer and 8-pointer, can they complete in same time? Based on the complexity that we give them the higher points, but at the end the time required is same for them. Is it possible? Or it should be that higher point story should always take more time than the smaller one?
Okay, so Sylvie, you want to take, or okay? So I'll start this. So
Yeah,
there
sure.
is a greater myth around this, and I really want to tell everyone in this call that when we say story point, right, 5 and 8, it's always possible that my 5-story pointer will take 2 weeks. When I say 2 weeks, we are talking about efforts over here,
Yeah.
right? And it's possible that my 8-story pointer will take only 2 days. Now for you, you might be asking me like, how is it possible that one is an 8-story pointer, but how you are telling me that it will take only 2 days, right? So basically what I'm telling you is the effort part. And if you might have seen the slide which Selvi has shared, right? Story point is not only efforts. That's what greater myth with everyone else, right? Story point is more on a complex thing. So for giving an example, I just use this example a lot with a lot of other people. So let's say I have just one simple Excel sheet, right? And I have to just copy from one Excel sheet to another Excel sheet, maybe like 30 seconds of time, right? But if let's say what will happen if I have 10,000 Excel sheet, maybe 10,000 seconds of time. But does this work is so complex? No, right? This work is not that complex, right? It's just simple copy paste, but maybe effort is increased, right? Right. So again, and I'm not even considering the risk or dependency and all those factors right now. And now let's consider I have some algorithm, or maybe I just need to change one small field, right? But that small field have dependency, maybe a lot of complex program is based on that, maybe some VAT or something is about to change, or some, one specific field, right? So maybe the change of that particular field will take maybe like 5 minutes for you as a developer. You will just go and do some changes, one-liner code change, and that's done, right? So the effort is very less, but the amount of time you are going to spend, the complexity, maybe that algo is so difficult, maybe you need to come up with something different, something different mechanism altogether. So the complexity is too high, right? So if you ask me, again, it's again varies from perspective to perspective. What I normally use, we have we normally use one matrices where we specify as a wall of reference what is 1 for us, what is 3 for us, what is 5 for us, and based on the risk, how much risk is associated with this particular user story, complexity, and all these factors. So basically everything is combined, it's not only about efforts. That's my point. Yeah, Selvi, you want to add anything in this?
Yeah, I think you covered most of the things, Sunand. Just one point I just want to add. As a team, we need to first come together and make the story point 1 very clear, because that is going to be the key player for your further estimation. Like, what is the story that is going to hold the 1 story point? Because as I mentioned earlier, the object I'm holding in my hand, which is of some size, and after that I'm holding another object of same type, color, everything, which is slightly bigger, which means that I am able to feel that this is bigger than the previous one, which means I need to first know whatever the item I picked the very first, what is the size of that. So I need to be very clear in first deciding what is my 1 story point story. So which should not have complexities, which should not have any dependencies, which should be a free flow. I pick it up, I don't have any kind of trouble in between. I no need to resolve any kind of issues. As Sunand mentioned, it should be always about like what you are picking and then driving it. Then it is easy for you to going forward. This will be your reference. So when you pick up the next story for your estimation, you need to compare with this 1 story point story, like whether it's 2 times bigger or 3 times bigger or 5 times bigger, like with the dependencies, how it is different. Because the best example what Sunand has mentioned, because of the things, it may be a slight change for the development, but it has a lot of dependencies, and maybe it has so many things involved in testing and for the other activities, which combines as a part of the story, right? So the main part here is one story point story. You need to discuss with your team, spend good time, and come with the one story point story. That is the key. And after that, it will be a free flow. And always, please do not only consider the effort. It should be always the other way. We need to consider all the factors, which we actually tend to forget most of the time. And as you rightly asked the question, it is not necessary that 5 and 8 should have a variance. Maybe you would have thought it as 8 because of so many dependencies and risk. Might be on the flow as a very good scrum master. The things are unblocked. You got it at the right point, and you were able to resolve all the issues upfront, and you made it very clear for the team execution. Then maybe that 8 story become eventually 5, and that also might get completed even before the 5 story pointer story. So these things generally happen in the practical world as well.
Yeah. I hope you got this. Why we are emphasizing on this answer, because a lot of time it's been asked, and still people have a lot of confusion around it. So yeah, thanks Samir for that. Okay.
Thank you.
Let's move on. Manish V. Manish, you there?
Yes.
Manish, can you open your webcam, please? At least for this question, you can open, right?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah, just we have seen a lot like 0 story points. When do we use that?
Oh, when you heard this, I'm hearing this first time, honestly.
Also, when we see the estimation techniques and we see the Fibonacci series, we see it starts from 0, half. And I just joined a new company, and I saw a few stories where the estimation were given as 0. And I went to the story. And
can you just give any example of those? Any one example? Yeah.
No, it was actually when I went to the story. I am from a development background. I myself would have given a minimum of 3.
No, just
but as that story
if you can thought of anything from your
it was a UI change. It was a small it was a small UI change where there were like around 4 labels had to be changed. But yeah, that was the basic story. 4 labels had to be renamed. That was the requirement.
I don't know how they have given 0, honestly. I have no clue. So do you have any idea on this, how that UI change can be a 0 story point?
Definitely it cannot be 0 point, as there are some changes expected, but in practical also it's very uncommon scenario to use 0 pointer, as Manish was also talking about. It is actually a surprising part with some changes with 0 story pointer. But there may be certain situations that you would have covered some changes as part of your previous bug fix or something in the already planned story, and the actually previously planned story is no more an existing one. It becomes obsolete kind of stuff. It's nullified because of the changes that what we made, and there is no stuff that needs to be taken care as part of the story, but your story is already planned and it is also available in your backlog. In that case, people generally try to put as part of this 0 story pointer, because it makes no sense with that story, because already it is taken care. Just a matter of a placeholder, it is available. But that scenario generally very rare. At least in my experience, I have never put any stories with story pointer 0. Even for label changes, as you asked, it should, because it's not, maybe for a developer it is might be from A to B and B to C, but for a tester, again, the effort is there. Maybe in one place, if you are changing, it may be changing in 2-3 web pages as well. We don't know. So we may need to do at least a kind of like root cause before doing that, whether it is a single page change or it is correlated in multiple fields which are available. And maybe the person who would have written the test automation script based on the label maybe picked up the identifier with the help of the label which is available. Now they need to change the code also, right? Because you are changing the label from A to B. Maybe it is affecting them also. We don't know. Maybe if they are doing with ID, it may not change. Ideally, they will go with that. I'm thinking from a very exaggerated point of view, but by chance, if it is affecting test automation, they also need to put the effort. So as a whole, it is not just a label change will go for 0. Definitely, it should be tracked as with a different story point.
Okay.
Shall we just to want to add one point here, right? So actually there was a scenario. Okay, in my project there are 2 tickets. One is to fix the bid value. So when I toss the bid value, so other ticket is for ask value. So ask value will automatic resolve when I'm working for one story point, right? So if the bid value is taking care for ask, then I no need to calculate for ask. Ask
Correct.
will be 0 story point. In that case, it is possible.
Yeah, maybe yes. So if the work that you have already done is nullifying the future work, then you can definitely make it a 0. Yes.
Okay.
Thanks
So
for
now,
bringing that point, Manoj. Yeah.
okay. So now I'm going to give you not one, maybe a couple of other example, but again, interest of time. Okay. So now I can think of a couple of things where you can mark user story as a 0 story pointer. Okay. So now tell me a scenario. If you are doing some kind of KT and all, right? You are spending your effort. Your team is spending their capacity, right? But that is not. So when we do our capacity planning, when we do all these story points and all, what exactly we are doing over here? The actual development work which we are doing is there in my sprint backlog. So if you are doing anything other than that, which is not adding value to your existing sprint user stories, that is in a ways waste for me. But then again, you have to track those efforts, or you have to track those tasks or anything like that. In that kind of scenario, I can think of those scenarios where you can put one, maybe like a knowledge transfer kind of with a 0 story pointer. That's the one scenario. Other scenario, let's say your team is working and suddenly their BDI is down, right? How you are going to track all those waste efforts, right? You know that at the end of the sprint, you will know how your stakeholder will know that your team members are spending 8 hours or 2 hours without doing any work, because at that time their VDI is down. That is not your fault, and you have not considered all those risks. Maybe you might have considered those risks, but then at the end of the day, your sprint goaling is going to be impacted, right? Those kind of scenarios, those kind of, maybe for a tracking purpose, you can create those kind of user stories and you can mark them as a 0 story pointer. That all I can think of. Okay, does it make sense?
Thanks, Suman. Thanks for adding those examples. Yeah, it's really good.
Okay, let's move on. Type of user story, ask question in today's interview. Vivek, which interview you are giving?
Yes, sir. For TechM.
Tech Mahindra. You are into a lot of interviews nowadays. Okay, type of user story. Anyone? What do you have replied?
I say functional and technical, but it is, I don't know, like it is
functional
correct
technical.
or not.
What? Okay. Sylvie?
Yeah, actually, first of all, let me ask Vivek, why you thought of functional and technical, Vivek? Is there any reason?
Yeah, I say like, I don't know. First thing, like he again asked me like, did you know like any user story? So I say it might be the function and technical, but I am not sure about it.
Okay. So technical means you were thinking of the technical spikes and technical depth related stories, what we create for refactoring and all those things, right? And about function. Okay. And about functional, I think you were thinking of something that we will deliver as part of the business value. That's what you were thinking.
Right, previously.
Okay. So apart from this, can you now think of any other user stories which will come maybe from today's session, or something you are thinking something else also can add into this bucket? Yeah, it's everyone can jump in, whoever have any other suggestions also. So one is technical depth spikes, what actually Vivek rightly mentioned, the first topic. That's very clear for all of us. Something like if you want to refactor some of the functionality, or bring up certain level of changes in your code level from the as part of your architectural runways, some of the items you would have picked as part of technical depth, that is fine. That is one set of stuff. And apart from that, anyone else has worked on any other special stories?
Maybe we can call spikes as well as a user stories.
Okay. Any other answers? Spike, technical depths.
Guys, yes, no, anything? We can just share, right? Nothing else. There is no harm.
Yeah, please, whatever the things like Vivek has a two set of stuff that he shared with us. Anything else that you people think?
Enablers.
Okay, enablers, can you give some example? I don't know who is talking actually. Is that not Vivek?
It's like it's
Okay.
Manoj.
Yeah, Manoj,
maybe
please.
if it could be related to infrastructure, or maybe it could be related to security, but it may not give any value add to the business.
Not value addition, then actually what is the purpose of that story in that case?
Maybe it may not generate any new revenue, I would say, out of from it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it improves the our architectural runway.
Okay.
Selvi, Prem here. To me, it's I can tell as a product re-engineering or additional infrastructures.
Sorry, can you come back? Product re-engineering?
Re-engineering or additional infrastructures.
Okay. Okay.
Selvi, this is Susitra. I feel like there are no different types of user story. So we have like every user story should have a minimum viable output.
Okay.
So I think there will be like we can segregate the user stories by type. So we can segregate like it's like every store in the sense sprint backlog, everything we have one sprint goal, and it is like I don't think it is like types will we will differentiate it.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't have much experience on that, but as far like my opinion is that.
Okay. Thanks.
Can a change request be considered as a user story? A type,
okay,
I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are having this thing. So we are into UAT now, and there are a few defects been raised. And when we are going through it, we actually come to know that those are not defects. Those are actually changes, and we are converting those defects to user stories.
User stories.
Can we consider that as a type here?
But at the end, you are delivering some kind of business value as part of functionality here, right?
Yes.
Yes. Maybe actually, as you mentioned, the origin is different. It is not coming from product owner as part of a user story. It is coming from a defect which actually was resulted as part of your, which got resulted as part of your previous functionality delivery, and that got converted into a new functionality.
Correct.
So one, sorry, someone was talking.
Please go ahead. Yeah, it's me. Please go ahead. Please go.
So one question when we are talking about this, so every user story should be accepted by a PO, right? So we are talking about these technical user stories. Will we give demo for these technical user stories, and how the sprint review will happen for these kind of stories?
So we just to continue with this question, can we add our hot fixes to this technical user stories, or kind of separate one of the type of user stories as hot fixes from the productions or from the UAT?
So the hot fixes means you are actually collating all the issues into a single user story. That was your question?
No,
or maybe
no, I'm not collecting the from multiple issues. I'm collecting one. I'm getting one issue from the production side, and it has to be fixed. So the product owner created one user story for that, and further the team has taken into the current sprint, and PO has managed to negotiate with the commitment and moved one of the user story to the next sprint, and we have to fix this one. So can we add, hot fixes as one of the user story type?
It's actually not necessary. The reason is because it's a product defect. So there is a category of defects. Actually, even it is also a good practice for the agile teams to even estimate the bugs also. Like if you are picking up like 3 to 4 bugs as a fix in a particular sprint, it is always very good practice by the agile team not to convert them into user stories or collate all the bugs and put it in one user story, because that is not a right practice. Let the bugs remain as bugs, but you should be knowing that the time and the effort what you are going to spend, plus the additional complexity, dependencies, risk that are going to lie for, that are going to be part of this fix, also aware to, or also the information that are available in your side. So with all this information, you should be in a position to estimate like how you are estimating the other stories. So it is always not recommended to convert all the product defects into stories. Because a product backlog item is what? Actually, it is a combination of user stories, it can be technical depths, it can be a spike item, it can be bugs. All these are the whole all these combinedly called as the product backlog items. It's not necessary only user stories will be available. Depends on the priority and the need. All these items from the product backlog will be groomed, will be refined, and then estimated, and then put it under the sprint backlog, and which will be taken as part of your sprint execution. So it is always good to keep as it is as a product defect and take up from there and do it as part of your sprint execution, but with a proper estimate.
Thanks. So can we sum up?
Yeah. So yeah. So coming to the question of Vivek, generally, as you mentioned, Vivek, there is generally people call it as functional stories or product requirements directly, which is nothing but the user story itself. And there is some category which is called as technical user story, which will be aligned directly with your architectural runway. It is always a good blend to have both these things. That's why people generally ask, what are the type of user stories you are using? As such, there is nothing like type. It is the nature of work what we do. We cannot obviously deliver as a technical user story any kind of outcome, but you cannot directly say that I am not delivering any outcome. Then the question will come, then why are we even picking up that user story? Definitely it gives some outcome. The outcome may not be visible like how you have some screen, plus you will have some functionality to operate it with. Maybe it will increase your code coverage, which actually will enhance your product. Maybe some kind of security violations are available that you are fixing it up, or maybe you are strengthening your unit test cases. So all these things are coming also under the technical side. And there is some place that testing team is always coming up with issues somewhere related to a search functionality, or somewhere there are some kind of like random combinations which are available with your datetime pickers. These are the places where you can see a lot of bugs coming from the testing side. So generally it's always advisable from Scrum Master side to talk to the technical architect to understand why this area is always with lot of bugs. And it is always not so recommended to come up with these many bugs, because you cannot predict your flow, because your bug cycle and the bug inflow is going so rapidly high. So in that case, it's always a good practice from Scrum Master to approach technical architect and understand these are the areas I am seeing lot of bugs. Why can't we pick up this and do as a part of refactoring? So this will automatically sit as part of your technical user story and will be taken care as a sprint execution. So the stories are generally not like type of stories. All stories give outcome, and all stories definitely add some kind of business value. Some are visible, some are invisible. These all are the invisible areas, but we are doing it to ensure that we are correcting for the future. That is one point. And there are areas we are delivering directly for the requirements. Those are the two categories. So technical and functional is right. Functional is directly fixing, delivering the things that are part of the requirements. Technical is nothing but the refactoring and trying to find out the areas where you need to repair your code and ensure that you are having a kind of high fidelity code for the future. All those things should be taken care as part of your technical side. Okay. And technical user stories, you cannot directly demo it. because you may not have some UI or you may not have a product as such to have a demo in sprint review, but it is always a good statistical information you can give as part of the, for example, the code coverage has been raised from so and so number to so and so number, or what are the areas that you have fixed, how the refactoring was handled. Some kind of document you can share as part of your delivery of that user story, which will help for the further sprints. Sunand, you want to add anything more?
I think we have covered most of the things, as you mentioned, technical and non-functional and technical one. And in the technical, as you mentioned, we have refactoring, bug fixing, spikes, all the infrastructure related thing, which I think so one of the team member has just mentioned over here. So yeah, I think we are good on that part. And Selvi, I think we are running out of time. I think we have shooted our time. I think it's a good session. I still have a couple of queries, so let's try to answer those maybe in our group, in our WhatsApp group. Sure. And anyway, we have our next session next week, so there also we can try to add those things. So yeah, for the interest of time, I think it's good. And yeah, I think it's really a fruitful session. A lot of good queries, answers.
Yeah, it was overall a very good learning, Sunand. Thanks for making this opportunity for all of us.
What about you guys, other people? Is it?
Yeah, it was really good.
It is really good.
Quite insightful. Yeah.
Okay, thanks guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sunand. Thank you.
The way Salvi has taken up the presentation.
Thanks everyone. I'm now stopping this.